I usually don't need mic. I'm pretty loud, but I think we're recording. How are you?
Great.
That bad? Oh, come on. How's it going? It's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. We have the weekend coming. Free time, no work. What's not to like? So my name is Frédéric Harper. I'm a developer advocate at Kubefirst. We are a startup, part of an incubator called Kubeshop, and we have a CLI tool that helps you to deploy a Kubernetes cluster really easily with all the tools we think you need to be successful in production ready. So think about Argo CD, Vault, Terraform, Atlantis, the tools you need to be successful. But I'm not here to talk about Kubefirst. Today I'm going to talk about GitOps, and while I do that, I spend way too much time on Twitter. So if you get bored during the presentation, you want to take a picture of the slides or that beautiful person that is in front of you, want to share good quote, bad quotes, things you hate about my talks, please do it on Twitter. My username is @fharper. So how many of you are familiar with GitOps? Oh, you're gonna get so bored for the next 20 minutes because I have about 20 minutes to talk about GitOps, so that's really gonna be like a quick overview of the topic. The Superman is because he's fast, so you get the thing? Okay. So I think literally the fact that it's a DevOps meetup. So let's start to talk a little more about DevOps. This thing should mean something to you. If you're a DevOps practitioner, if you do DevOps things, if you just deploy things on the cloud, you should see that diagram and say like, hey, it's something I know. We're using Git since forever now. That's the file versioning tool we use. We put a replication code there. We have a CI/CD pipeline that deploy to your cloud, to on-premises server, to your computer at home, whatever. This is the usual process we have. And since a couple of years, you may or may not think about infrastructure as code, IAC. It's defining your infrastructure with code. That was the best definition of infrastructure as code, right? So you put this on Git, probably define your structure, what you want to deploy, like your architecture of your application in the cloud or whatever infrastructure you need. And you may also put some configuration in Git. And if you do those kind of things, it's because you're following some best practices when it comes to DevOps. But the difference kind of like stop here a little bit. So when we think about GitOps, we decouple CI and CD. So you've seen the beautiful animation. That's beautiful. So we decouple CI, CD. And they still do the job they have to do. You still do some testing. You still build your application if it's a programming language that needs to be compiled, and you do whatever you have to do. But the other difference is that the CD is pulling, and I really need to update that diagram because it seems like it's pushing in Git, but it should be something like that, where it goes get whatever is in your Git folder and bringing back to wherever you want to deploy your stuff. And to do that, it means that Git is now your source of truth. How many people, when there is an issue with your application, service, tool, online, you SSH on the server and fix stuff? Come on, nobody's raising their hand. You're full of shit. Everybody's doing that. Everybody's doing that. And it's great. It's working great. It's fast. I fix my thing. The problem is that I fix the thing or my colleague fix it. I don't know what's happening. It's not easy to replicate. Sometimes we don't even know what we changed and why it's working. So the benefit of GitOps is that your Git repository, call it whatever you want. I used to call it GitOps, kind of like simple. And it's your source of truth. So every change you do, so you need to stop thinking about doing some ClickOps, where you're going to go on your cloud provider, you go on AWS console, and you change the infrastructure with your mouse, or you do script up, or you script stuff, which is good, because at least there is like a repeating process to do that. But still, depending on how you run the script, you may have different results. It may not be exactly what you want. I may have modified a script on my computer, which is different than yours, or even GitOps, which is you talk to a bot and you try to do things with a bot in your cluster, which sometimes is good, sometimes it's a little less good. But again, those are specific actions that you take to your cluster or your server or wherever you deploy your application or tool. So when we think about GitOps, it's taking all the, and maybe it's pretentious saying that, but it's taking all the best practices of DevOps and put it in one thing, which is kind of like a subset of DevOps called GitOps. But the thing though, is that it's for Kubernetes. It's for Kubernetes because the CD part of your pipeline is installed directly on the cluster. And there's a couple of benefits to that. One benefit is that now, instead of having your CD that need access to the server and push things, instead of like giving me the root access or the admin access to your server, which you should do after the talk, but instead of doing that, if you follow GitOps, I only need my CD to have access to my Git repository. So I'm not a security expert, but it looks to me like it's a little more secure because I don't have to give access to everybody. I don't even have to give access to my server to my CD pipeline. So pretty cool though. This is GitOps in a nutshell. Let me show you a little bit something. So is it big enough? Is it big enough? Yeah. You like it bigger? Oh, okay. So I have my GitOps repository here. You don't have to follow. The guy's like, why did you invite Fred? Yeah, I'm sorry. You said yes before you know me. So that was a pleasure talking here. That was my last time. So this is my GitOps repository. I created that, and this is basically managing my cluster. So you don't have to repeat the same structure infrastructure. But if I go here, I have a folder called Terraform, and I can manage my repository with Terraform file. I can add a user with Terraform because my cluster right now is connected with Vault, and Argo CD is connected to it. Terraform is connected, like everything is connected. So I did not do all that magic. I use Kubefirst to do that. It took me about 5 minutes to have like a Kubernetes cluster locally working with it. But again, not here to talk about Kubefirst, just to tell you it's not because I'm really good and I'm brilliant. I just use a command line that did the work for me. So here, if I go in Argo CD, which is the CD part, there's alternative, there's Flux, there's other technology out there that can do the CD part of your new pipeline. And if I look at the registry here, I have a bunch of component or application that are here. But what I want you to see is that there's nothing called Flappy. So I'm going to have an application here. I'm going to go in the registry Kubefirst. When I have some YAML file. How many of you love YAML? Yeah, you're crazy. Now, joke aside, it really took me forever to start to not hate YAML. And now I think I reach a point where I'm like, okay, I'm okay with YAML. But when it started to be a thing, I was like, why did you love developers? Like, what's the problem with those people? But anyway, now I'm kind of loving it. So I was lazy. I didn't wrote all those things. I had a beautiful shortcut, but I'm basically defining an application that I want to install in my cluster. And don't do this at home. I'm going to commit directly to the main branch. Please do a PR, have someone review it. Kids, don't do that at home. So for the sake of time, commenting on it. And if I go back here and, oh, I don't even have time to refresh so fast. So you're going to see now I have one application that is out of sync for now, not deployed, but I did absolutely nothing except committing a new YAML file into my GitOps repo. So this is the power of having the CD fetching from my source of truth, which is my GitOps repository. So let me go back to it right after, but I'm going to continue to talk because I love to talk. This is why I'm being paid. So GitOps is not the standard per se, but there is a working group that is working on some principle. So they're at the v1.0.0 that are GitOps principle. There is 4 principles. One, it needs to be declarative. So this is what we've said right at the beginning, you know, using Terraform. No, you don't have to use Terraform, but like defining your infrastructure as code, putting your configuration in your GitOps repo, putting everything you need for your cluster to be working, production ready, functional in your GitOps repo. Again, you can call it whatever you want. I feel like GitOps repo is a good thing. It needs to be a version and immutable. I don't know why I struggle with that word in English, but you achieve that again using with Git. And the benefit of using Git for everything that you define about your cluster is that you have the history. It's easier to, if you want to revert to a specific version, it's also easier for, blame your teammate when they did something stupid because you have the history and you can see what happened. But at the same time, the benefit is it's easier to replicate a cluster, all configuration and everything you needed to make your cluster work. The third part is it needs to be pulled automatically. So sometimes I talk to people and say, yeah, I do GitOps, but they're still using traditional CD, if I could say, where it's pushing things to the cluster. Because you know it, for the people using Kubernetes, like I can Helm install, I can go in Argo CD, I can install things manually. I don't have to go through the GitOps folder. But because it's pulled automatically, there's the benefit of not having, or at least being able to quickly remove some cluster drift, which is the part where someone did something on the cluster that were not in the GitOps repository. So in my case, I use Argo CD. Argo CD will check and say like, hey, there's the manifest that I want, and there's a difference. So I'm going to sync that thing and make sure that my cluster represents the definition, the declaration of my cluster that I have in my GitOps repo, which was the fourth point. So again, no standard per se, but there is the working group working on those principles. And it's kind of like, if you do GitOps already, those are kind of things that you probably know and respect, even if you didn't know that GitOps has some principle. So all the benefits that I talked before, there's a couple more that, what did I say? So security-wise, it makes sense. Actually, it makes more sense. I feel like it's more secure. For me, the fact that you need to put everything on Git can be a benefit because it's a tool that you already know. It had a revision process, which is also beneficial, even if you may hate that. But yeah, don't commit on lane. You do a PR. Someone, if you have already best practices in place when it comes to PR or code modification, someone on your team will need to review your PR and be sure that what you've done makes sense. And for me, even if it may take a little more time than doing the change yourself or going on the server and doing the change or doing something on the cluster directly, for me, it had another level of, proof reading or proof coding, or I don't know how to say that, but you understand what I mean, right? Yeah, you're all sleeping, watching Instagram, waiting, stupid things that I'm seeing. Yeah, understand. There's some challenges too. If you're not already into DevOps and you're like, hey, okay, we go for more traditional cloud, we don't really have a CI/CD pipeline, and I'm starting to use Kubernetes. I love the first talk because there are so many things that can go wrong. And I don't know, sometimes people tell me like, hey, Kubernetes is easy. That's a joke. That's not easy. That's a powerful tool that helps you fix complex scenario. And that could be wonderful, but that could be such a nightmare. And a lot of evening and night in fetus position under the shower and crying because my pods are not working, or I don't find the namespace that I was looking for. It's not there, it's not deployed. So Kubernetes can be difficult, which means that thinking about GitOps can be a little more difficult. And some of the pros that I said can be a cons for you, can be something negative for you. The fact that you need to use your Git repository, the fact that you need to have approval process can be a pain for some people. And it can make the deployment or the changes a little bit slower, depending if someone is there to review the PR, or like if there is some discussion about a PR because you don't agree about something. But even if you see this as something negative, I see this as something positive. And the other thing is that it's not magic. So if you don't have great processes in place, GitOps is not going to help you. So if I go back and Demo gut is good with me. Seems to be out of sync. No, actually, I think it was good. My namespace. And when I was saying that things can go wrong.
Depends on the PR.
Yeah, because did you say because I didn't do a PR? Smart ass. Yeah, so in theory, I should have an application here. How much time do I have left? Do I have enough time to plug that? No. Okay, I'll go back after if it makes sense. But the point was more about that. I put something in my Git repo, Argo CD fetch it, and in theory, I have an application that is working. It was working on my machine though. So just to kind of like help you get started if you're new to GitOps, there is the GitOps working group that I was talking about. So if you go on gitops.com, open-gitops/project, you have the information about the GitOps principle. It's a working group, it's public, it's open. You can join. I think they have meetings every like twice a month or every month. And it's on Zoom or Google Hangout, I don't remember. You can join it, you can participate, you can meet people, you can participate in the group. There is many projects there to try to make GitOps even better, to bring GitOps to the next level. We've worked, I think they're the one who coined the term GitOps, and they have an awesome GitOps repo. By the way, if you don't know the awesome repos on GitOps, there is awesome dash something about everything and anything. It's usually a repository just putting awesome stuff about a specific topic together. So I really like the repo. There are some good tools, some information, some even training, I think, in that repository. It's a great resource to Kubefirst, because I work there. It's a great tool. It's free, it's open source. So it's why I feel like I can spend like 30 seconds talking about it. As I said before, I have Kubernetes working on my laptop with Key3D on Docker, and it took me 5 minutes, 6 minutes actually, if I want to be honest, to deploy a full-fledged cluster with Argo CD, Terraform, HashiCorp Vault, Ingress Control, Nginx Ingress Controller, Cert Manager, and a lot more applications that are already working together. And the beauty of that is that we don't manage your repo. You have the GitOps repo, and it's yours. So after that, you do whatever you want. So it's opinionated. I struggle with that word in English too. Opinionated. French is my first language. It's probably so with my beautiful, sexy accent. But yeah, you have the GitOps folder. You do whatever you want to. So if you're new to GitOps, if you're new to Kubernetes, free open source, you don't charge anything. You can deploy a cluster easily locally. AWS, it takes a little more time because there is like 10,000 more resources to create it. Just have like a Kubernetes cluster. It's about 25 minutes. And we support SIBO, and we have in beta DigitalOcean and Vultr. So, Vultr, yeah, right. So you can try it or don't try it. It's just a tool there to help you. Lastly, we have a Slack community, kubernetes.io/Slack. We have a GitOps folder, so it's not just for people using your product. It's for every GitOps people that just want to share, ask questions. We are a small team, but we have an expertise. We have experience when it comes to cloud native. So if you have questions about anything and everything, we probably don't have answer to everything, but there's a chance that we can help you, and we're just like friendly people. So if you want to talk to me after, I'm going to stay the rest of the evening. Please don't do this during the other talk, but after. And I have some t-shirts too. I have about 100. The only issue is that I just packed them in the bag, and now all the sizes are messed up. So you're gonna have fun to find one, but I have about 100 of those. It's free. You don't even have to like the product, but we have a beautiful mascot that usually everybody loves. So it's there. If you're too shy to approach me, usually I would have said, I used to have a beard like you, and you kind of like people were, oh, actually, I have a picture there. I was like, I used to have a beard, trust me. Oh, it's there. Yeah. Yours is way better than mine though, but it's not there anymore. Sometimes I was like, oh no, I don't want to approach the beard guy. He looks like a hobo. So you can still do this by email, on Twitter, ping me on LinkedIn. If you want to have a free coffee chat, fred.dev/coffee, 30 minutes talk. We talk about anything, everything. It does not even need to be about GitOps or cloud native. Just happy to meet new people. So on that, so I'm good. Yeah, shut up. So that's it.
so much, Fred. Any questions for Fred? Let's give him a big round of applause.
Any question, comment, insult?
Okay, I have a quick question and then a follow-up question. Are you proposing that even when dealing with issues on production or important environments, that you would commit the changes to Git rather than dealing with them on the clusters themselves?
Let's be honest, in the perfect world, yes. In the reality, when shit happen in production, I'm probably gonna fix things directly on my cluster. But the second thing I'm gonna do once everything is back to normal, I'm gonna go back to my GitOps repo and I'm gonna implement the things that I just did. So if I want to be totally transparent. Now, if I give you the right answer, yes, I'm gonna let the production be on fire until I put things on my GitOps repo. So that would be the professional right way to do it. But reality is not the same. Like the idea is that at least if you do something directly on your cluster, which again, you probably should not, but production is on fire. You need to do something and maybe it's the fastest way to do that. So you do it, but be sure that after you go back to your GitOps repo and you change the configuration, have the file, do whatever you need to do to replicate what you've done on the server. And if you did it right, tools like Ergo CD will just anyway really quickly override what you've done.
We can take a couple of more questions. All right, and one over there. Gotcha.
Hey, thank you for discussing all these security issues. So my question is something related to that only. So what do you think about security drawbacks or limitations when somebody actually transition to GitOps, maybe from Kubernetes deployments?
I didn't hear the last part, sir.
So if somebody is just trying to transition to GitOps from the Kubernetes deployments, so what do you think about the security drawbacks, if any?
If the security is going to be different?
Yeah, if it is better or maybe there are some limitations or yeah.
I feel it's better for the reason that I said before, where you don't need to give access to everybody or every tool, because it's the other way around. Instead of giving access to your cluster, giving access to your cloud hosting, you give access to your GitOps repo, which is, for me, again, not a security expert, it's my opinion. I feel like it's way more secure because there's way less to lose. Actually, it can be right or wrong because you give access to a GitOps repo, which probably point to some of your application, which have your code if it's not open source. So it may bring other type of security issue, but I feel like it's more secure like that, because I would really prefer someone to if I think it would be easier to fix access issue to my GitHub repository, or regenerate a token or something like that, then having to change different access on my server. And you can do a lot of really bad thing on the server, where on my repo, I usually have a copy on my computer because I'm a developer and I cloned it, and I usually don't do the modification on GitHub itself. I do it on my computer in the command line. So if something screw up with my repo, if someone screw up with my repo, I still have a copy. But I'm not sure if I'm answering your question though.
You have audit as well.
Sorry?
You have audit as well. That's some of the benefit.
Yeah.
You have audit of the whole event.
Yeah.
There are smaller companies like Strong DM, and then GitOps the comfortable definitions for each of the users. So sorry, so that's pretty damn loud. All right. So yeah, you want to use something like Strong DM or equivalent, where you can impersonate, and then based on your Active Directory role, which is part of your RBAC of your cluster, you would inherit a cluster role based on your member groups. That's generally also done in GitOps, and I just don't think they're exclusive. They're not mutually exclusive. You need both use cases. You're going to need it to get into your cluster for break glass because shit happens, and then use GitOps to maintain those cluster roles itself. So you need both.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shlomo. And we can take one more question.
So
What's that?
No, sorry.
Was saying that in case of a drift, let's say I made a change in the manually on the cluster, and then I made and do the same change on the GitHub repository. Argo CD picks it up and applies it. Would it replace my manual change, or would it say the states are in sync, like how Terraform says no infrastructure changes? Because if it is replacing my change, that can again lead to a blip in the uptime. So how is that handled?
What was the last part?
How is that handled? Like the sync portion, is it a replacement, an update, or is it like the states are sync and I'm not gonna do anything?
It depends, like it would be a replacement, and if you go, you can even like manually sync things yourself, and you have option when you do that, where you can basically like prune, you can delete stuff, and actually I could even, you can see it in action here, if I go here and I delete it. You're gonna see right away, Argo CD, check the GitOps folder, and just like started to redeploy the application. He's silent, applause.
Like it will be picked up.
I think we move to the next thought.
Anyone else? I said one last question in case has one more question. Anybody that has one more question, we can take it. Otherwise, we're gonna take a quick little break. We've got some pizza, fresh, right out of the oven. We have an oven here, I'm just kidding. You know,